When I was 14 years old, I told my dad I wanted to be a lawyer. He said I couldn't because I was a girl. At which point, I was absolutely dedicated to becoming a lawyer. When I look back and I know why my father said I couldn't because I was a girl, it wasn't because he didn't want me to. He felt it was going to be a very hard profession, and I wasn't really ready for it. I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and in the 60s, like many of my friends, I was very much opposed to the war in Vietnam, and I wanted to get someplace where people were protesting. And in February of my senior year in high school, some students at WashU University blew up ROTC. So I thought that was cool. So I went out to WashU for my interview, and I met a man whom I don't know his name, I'll never remember his name, but he changed my life in that interview. He said, wouldn't you prefer to have the people who were leading the troops in Vietnam to have gone to a school like this and to have had a liberal arts education and to be more aware of the world and of history and of literature than just to be led by people who went to military school? And this guy made me stop and think. Everything goes back to that moment. I want people to learn philosophy, to learn history, to learn about art and music, and be well-rounded people so that we can have a great world.
Joanne Bober majored in comparative literature and soon embarked upon a distinguished 30-year career in law.
I graduated from law school in 1980. There were no women that I worked with. I generally was the only woman in every room, and I didn't know how to succeed. And I didn't have anybody to look at to see how a woman could succeed. I was succeeding, but it always seemed like I had to work much harder and I had to be much smarter than all the guys. We didn't know what the key was, but now I do.
I came to know Joanne when she began to speak to different diverse populations at the university, discussing what it means to be a professional woman in the workplace and the kinds of gender inequities that one might confront in a variety of different professions. She had a great deal to offer students as well as faculty, not only women students, but these are also really important to convey to our young men and also our male faculty.
Joanne's leadership has been influential in both the courtroom and the boardroom of major corporations like JCPenney and Chubb.
I was there during 9/11, and I lived just a block and a half north of Ground Zero. The next morning, we had a conference call with the Secretary of Commerce because after the towers had been hit and George Bush came back on air, he said that this was an act of war. And as an act of war, technically under every insurance policy, we could have denied coverage. I take great pride in the fact that the chairman of Chubb said, I can't speak for anybody else, but Chubb is going to honor its policies and we're going to pay them. So that was a moment where I was really proud of my job and my company.
Joanne has devoted considerable energy to Washington University and to charitable causes focused on health and human services, education, and the arts.
I think of Joanne as a Renaissance woman. Joanne was literally reinvigorating the opera and its administration and fundraising. She did it with a great deal of energy and imagination and was invaluable to the opera.
I always seem to have at least one faculty member a semester who would force me to think differently. And I think that's the most valuable lesson that I learned from WashU. Just don't accept things. Don't accept that you know everything. You don't. Question yourself and question everything around you. And I love that. Absolutely love that.